Hey, welcome back to Métropole Grid. My name is Andre. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are back to the Alphabet Deck Dive series. We're still very much as close to the top as we can be, and we are on A. A brings us to Teia. This was our patron's choice, and I'm very excited about this because Teia is easily one of the most exciting IDs to come out recently in the Liberation cycle. Teia, this mixture of Jinteki tricks and traps and kickflips, but also just having some baseline efficiency cooked in, which, mind you, efficient, good stuff Jinteki I don't think is something we've seen consistently since Polana Foods has rotated out a couple years ago. Teia was definitely something I was very excited to get to. And as you might have noticed, considering there's been a big break between 419 and the letter A, this one's been a bit of a challenge to make work in a way that I was really happy about. In fact, while we just got a ban list a couple weeks ago, my first iterations of a Teia deck were not performing super well, and I decided to take a break to see what the ban list brought to hopefully bring down some of the runners that were kind of just crushing through most of the ice we had in this deck. And lo and behold, as you might now know, the change to the 2405 ban list was, in fact, actually pretty bad for Teia. Tributary was just a nonsense powerful ice that Teia loved more than most other Jinteki decks, and this was a 2 of, sometimes even a 3 of in the Teia decks I was testing, and of course Tributary is now banned. Now on the other hand, the Nob Kari ban, the sort of virus anarch decks, was not a great matchup for Teia, so while you do have one less bad matchup, overall the power level of the deck is not exactly what you'd want it to be. It did get worse with the ban list for sure. But that's okay. We've come up with something right now after a fair bit of testing, and throughout this video, we'll be showing this deck list. We'll have a bunch of gameplay, and then we'll show you a couple other options and explain the sort of troubles and tribulations I had with Teia trying to make something that works, because Teia is a bit more tricky than you'd want it to be for a whole bunch of reasons. In the meantime, we're going to explain this deck. If you want to take a second just to like the video, that definitely helps the channel grow, and let's dive in. This is Teia. To make sure we're on the same page, the ability is pretty tricky, pretty nuanced. You're limited to only 2 remote servers. That's a very big balancing thing. If Teia didn't have that text, it'd be pretty cracked. It says the first time a turn you're installing something in or in front one of your remote servers, you can install something in or in front of the other remote server free of cost. Now, inherently, that's a double install for a single click, as long as you can build a board state where that makes sense. And that sort of click compression is obviously very valuable for a deck that does want to put things in remote servers. You also can save credit costs on installing your ice, and that's actually one of the best ways to get the Teia ability to fire, because if you install something in server 2, your ice on server 1, that can cost you 2 credits or 3 credits as the ice gets taller and taller. You're not only saving clicks, you're saving credits, and that's super, super valuable. This is also first time each turn ability, so you can fire it on the runner's turn, and there's some cool trick ways to do that. That gives you more click compression, which you definitely value. As much as Tributary was the cool way to do that, we don't have that anymore. So it's going to be a bit more rare than maybe ASA group firing on ASA group's terms, but it's a nice thing to keep in mind. And our deck is building good remote servers and just scoring out agendas behind them, using a bit of that efficiency of Teia to get you to that board state a bit faster, but it's actually pretty straightforward in what it's trying to do with its game plan. Let's start here with the agendas, and we're running as many 4-2 agendas as we can. We're running Nisei Mark II from the system update and from the original Fantasy Flight Games 2012 core set. It's a 4-2 agenda that when we score this out, we get a counter that ends the run. That's a really powerful ability because we have pretty good ice, and we're making it difficult for the runner to run that remote server so we can snowball agenda into agenda. It's also nice to use this on very impactful runs on central servers, whether it's a trick shot, sometimes that's worth stopping as much as the shot will still bend over to the remote server, but it's just a nice thing to have in your pocket that runners can struggle to interact with. We're playing Off-World Office, and that's because, unfortunately, Jinteki also doesn't have a lot of good tempo positive agendas. Most of the Jinteki agenda suite cares about damage inherently, and we're not really damage pilled, so we're just going to play a 7-credit econ card because the deck does, in fact, need some more money. The one cool include too is timely public release. There are entirely Teia decks that are built around this agenda. You might not be too familiar with this one because it doesn't see a lot of play, but when you score this out, you get an agenda counter on it, which you can use at instant speed to install a piece of ice. Now that means when you install the ice, you can install something into the other server, which means you can put agendas onto the table at the top of the turn window, and then that's installed, and then you can score it out in a way that's kind of akin to fast advance as much as you need some more support. There's a lot of Teia decks that are doing the flick-flack idea and playing 3 timely public release, and I think there's some other options we'll show that kind of build into that. But otherwise, this is just a utility piece that there are some kickflips we can do, but it's not our main goal. Now you notice the majority of our agenda suite is 4-2 agendas, and that's a really big deal because we're playing La Costa Grid. This card gives you 1 advancement on a card in the root of the server per turn, so we can never advance 4-2 agendas. We put something in the remote server, next turn it gets a La Costa, and then we can just do advance, advance, advance. So it becomes very important for the runner to figure out what's an agenda, what's not an agenda, because on most board states, anything can be an agenda. Our last agenda is 2 copies of Bacteria Programming. We're playing 2 of these 3-pointers. The text, when stolen or scored, allows us to look at the top 7 cards of our deck and basically do whatever we want with them. It's a very powerful ability. You don't often score this out as your first agenda because it is a bit expensive and a bit slow. And then half of the games you want to score this out, so you only have to score 3 agendas. But in the other half, you're just using it as a defensive piece to lower the agenda density in your deck. And when it fires, it kind of just pushes you forward as it sets up your next 2 or 3 turns of cool Teia abilities. There's a lot of games I will score at 4-4-2s because the deck is good at chaining 4-2 into 4-2 into 4-2, but back pro is just a really powerful agenda on most board states. Even if you lose it early, it kind of saves your early game and sets up a nice good hand. Otherwise, our Teia ability, we're playing a lot of assets, and assets are a nice way. Installing things into the root of a server is again a nice way to get that Teia ice on the first server that you're building and reduce those install costs as the ice gets taller and taller. So we're playing all these assets that we're actually in an okay spot to put them and strand them into the second remote server. Something definitely has to be said about building 2 remote servers equally with ice. I think that's possible in a Teia. From my experience, that's been a bit difficult for a whole bunch of reasons, but we generally want to install something in server 2 to install something in front of server 1 most of the time. And so we're running things like NGO front. This is a bit of a bluff of a card that looks like an agenda. It does get a bit better with the Costa Grid. The idea is that we install this in server 2, put an ice in server 1, put something in server 1, and then advance the NGO front gives 2 problems on the turn for the runner to deal with. Now, NGO front with a single advancement is just the best way you can get money off this. That first advancement is definitely worth more than the second advancement. And with a single advancement, NGO front looks like a Charlotte, another card that we're playing a 3 of in the deck because Charlotte's pretty incredible. So the runner often has to run the NGO front because if it's a Charlotte and you let the Charlotte fire more than once, it's pretty bad for you. So this is a really nice trade because clicklessly installing your NGO front and then still baiting a run out of the runner is a really good trade in terms of things you're doing for a single action. It's also money, which we want. And of course we have Charlotte. We will keep Charlotte in the remote server for as long as we can until we're set up because her ability to get 4 credits on a card draw at the start of your turn, especially when you don't pay for that advancement with the La Costa Grid, is quite good. On other board states, we'll just put her in server 2 and advance her if we do. The runner runs it, we can still crack Charlotte for 3 credits, which is not bad. We'd rather have an NGO front there, but it's just a nice card to put in a remote server so that we can push ourselves forward. In early versions of the deck, I was also running Cohort Guidance Program as a nice thing to kind of put into server 2 so the runner had to deal with it. And from my testing as the meta matured a bit, runners got better at understanding they should trash Cohort. So while you can still play Cohort in the deck, more often than not, runners will be trashing this. And so at least that opens up server 2 for other stuff to jam into it, but I found it to be less necessary. Now, otherwise, our assets, we're playing Rashida Yahim because she's very good in the standard format. And Spin Doctor is another really nice card to install on your server 2 because you don't mind. Clicklessly installing a Spin Doctor is good. Recursion's pretty good. Operations, nothing special, 3 hedge funds. It's all the economy we have. Economy in this deck is not too bad as much as most of it is now attached to your assets. We're at least really good at installing assets clicklessly or with click compression so it doesn't feel that bad. Now the upgrades are fantastic. We talked about 3 La Costa. That's really important for what the deck wants to do, which is try to put things in remote server on all board states and push them forward. And a very good thing with La Costa is we can use that 1 copy of the timely public release agenda counter to install an agenda before the start of our turn into our remote server, as long as we install an ice with the Teia ability. And then that thing will get the La Costa advancement and then 3 more advancements means we can fast advance 4 2s. Our other 2 upgrades are both sysops, and sysops work really, really well with the Teia ability because these sysops, as long as you res them, they can move at the end of your turn. So while Adrian still has a lot of really good defensive text that I'm not exactly sure what it says, I have to constantly reread this card. I'm not getting any better at it. Adrian is really powerful because you install Adrian in server 2, you install the ice or an agenda into server 1, and then you move Adrian at the start of the turn. So these sort of moving sysops are one of the best ways to make a Teia as consistent as possible, and I really, really value them. On the same line, we have Vovo to save us some install costs. Now, Vovo's really good with Tattoo Bola and ice that reses and dereses and move things around, but Vovo is just a really nice thing to put in server 2 and then slide over to whatever server you need. You install him clicklessly. And that's our upgrades. Everything else left in the deck is just ice. And obviously, while losing Tributary is not good, the ice suite for this deck is kind of interesting, and we ended up in a spot that I wouldn't exactly expect it. You notice we have 8 barriers. Currently, barriers in Jinteki are really quite good. We'll look at them, and we're running as few code gates as possible. We're down to 4 code gates, of which I would describe all of them as being relatively cheap gear checks. And I think that was a problem I was running with this deck for a long time for the last couple of weeks of testing, is that some of the good code gates that I really liked turned out to be pretty bad into the mid game, and it's a hard thing to deal with because the Jinteki ice suite right now is just not my favorite ice suite. I started playing 3 or 2 copies of Vampiranaza, and I love Vampiranaza. The runner runs into this early, it's generally res for 5 credits, it has 4 subroutines, it's really hard to deal with, But as you might know in the standard format, some of the best, most competitive decks are as consistently as possible across all factions besides Criminal, getting down their Buzzsaw, and then it's just a matter of time before the Turbine comes down. And I was finding myself in matchups in which the code gate that I res for 7 is often broken to the mid to late game for 2 credits, and you just can't have enough ice in your deck that you res for 7, they break for 2. It's just not tenable. So testing as went on, I played fewer and fewer code gates and just played the cheap stuff that was going to force out that buzzsaw, is going to force out that breaker, and at that point, it's just flexibility and utility. So running as Enigma, as an early face check, that's totally fine. We're running a Singleton Magnet. I think you could cut this. I think there's not a lot of Botulists in the format right now. We're not really weak to Phaserum Entangler because we mostly have barriers, but this is definitely not a bad ice. If you want to move this around again with less Virus Anarch, you don't need Magnet as much as you felt like you used to. And then 2 Thimblerig, which is a very flexible card. It gives you that ability to move your ice around and reposition. It's strong into things like Banhar because you can just move it down the server, and they actually need to produce their code gate breaker, which for some of the common Anarch decks, they only have 2 of their buzzsaws. You just force them to find it, which is not a bad spot to be in. So that's the code gate slot, and it's been really tricky. Again, if you look at the ice suite for Jinteki, there's a bunch of problems you run into. Firstly, if you're looking at cheap Jinteki ice, there's not a lot of options that don't inherently just do net damage. You're kind of running into like only Thimblerig and Tattoo Bola being the cheap stuff you want to play. And specifically, if you look at the code gate suite, there's not a lot of options. The big stuff mostly does net damage and everything else is like kind of rough to play. So it's a problem right now. Mind you, losing Tributary didn't help, but the code gate slot in Jinteki has been my hardest thing to enjoy. I don't know if I want to play a teeny because I don't care about net damage inherently. Maybe that's a good enough tax, but it is what it is. Once the buzzsaw comes down, of course, most code gates don't fare too well. Otherwise, though, the barriers, that's a really great slot for this deck. Of course, Tattoo Bola is just a buck wild card. It gets that flip, it gets that swap. Swap is considered install, so this can fire a Teia. It's hard for this deck to force the runner to run the remote server on the last click. There's some ways to do it, and that means if Tattoo Bola does a swap, you actually can install an agenda in the second server, and maybe you're able to score that out. You'd need a Lacoste or some other tricks, but it's still nice to get that flexibility where Tattoo Bola works favorably with a Teia. That's a very strong card. Otherwise, we got good big barriers. Botu is overperformed. My expectation when the set came out is this thing was not that good compared to Brawn, and Botu kind of slaps. Having high strength barriers is really good into the same sort of Turbine Cleaver meta. This being 4 strength in the early game is quite fine. 6 strength in the mid to late game is phenomenal. I would play maybe 3 Botu. We're not currently because we're playing 2 copies of Brawn for 4 influence, and Brawn is just Brawn. Brawn is Buck Wild. That first subroutine will have the ability to fire a Teia's ability, which is nice on the runner's turn, as much as mostly runners will click through that. Lastly, run a single copy of Border Control. I wanted something less fair to put on the remote server, and Border Control works there. I think this is an influence that's a bit luxurious, but I like this Border Control. It's also a nice thing that you can reinstall with timely public release if you need it in a pinch, as much as they're both one-ofs, but Border Control is still just Border Control. It's pretty good. Now, the Sentry slot, we're running 3 Saisentans. I think a lot of people start when building Jinteki decks by playing 3 copies of Anansi, and I've actually liked Saisentan a lot more. Now, I don't genuinely like the design of this card because I don't think a face check when you have 4 cards in hand should really be lethal on some situations, and this thing can be lethal if the runner doesn't respect it. And the runner generally is going to be breaking this for 3 credits, regardless of what their breaker suite is. And speaking about that whole Turbine idea, if you can res an Anansi, which is a bit expensive, mind you, 8 is a lot for a single ice in this deck, they're generally in the mid to late game breaking a Nancy for the same cost that we're resing a Saisentan. So I just want to res a Saisentan and save a couple credits and have a more impactful face check. That's been from my testing. Again, there's a lot of Turbine out there. You'll run into it. But Saisentan is mostly broken for 3 from every breaker. So that doesn't feel that bad. It's a fair bit cheaper in the early game. We're also running Tithe. This one's weird. Not sure if it's necessary. It's a nice cheap ice to put on central servers. Runners will have to respect it. The net damage, the credit gain, it's good. Generally, runners will break this for 2. You res it for 1, which is a pretty good enough trade. I think you can consider Rhyme if you wanted to and have that as your like flexible ice, but I like having an ice we can put on most board states and we can res on most board states. And that's the deck. It's relatively straightforward. You want to focus on getting your Teia trigger to fire, which you can do on most board states. You do value the card draw, Rashida's firing. Like if you have options in hand, that's pretty good, but you're building that remote server. You're constantly stacking 1 tall remote server, and then you're having server 2 to get your value options in there, whether it's a Spin Doctor or getting an NGO front or a Charlotte and forcing the runner to deal with it. It's not a bad ability at all. Now, to show you some other options I ran into in testing, this is one of the ideas, which was called Tranquiliteia. And the idea is that instead of playing Lacosta, we can play Tranquility Home Grid, which is a card that actually solves some of the downsides, some of the problems I ran into with Teia. Teia, you need options in hand, and Tranquility Home Grid's a really nice thing that when you install a card into Tranquility Home Grid, you can either draw a card or get some money. And this constantly keeps the cards flowing in hand, so you constantly have a good Teia thing. This is also a really nice thing to put in your second server because inherently the trash cost is relatively high for your res cost, and it's a nice way to get value of installing basically anything in the second server. We're also running 3 seamless launch here, which is very powerful. The idea that we're not running the sort of La Costa, so the never advance play with the 4-2s is a bit worse, but now we can go ahead and run 3 timely public release. So we can install on the end of the runner's turn, get a Tranquility Home Grid trigger, seamless launch out the next timely public release, and we're rolling forward. I think this can work. I think the highs are really high where you can just chain into chain into chain, but it felt a bit less consistent. I really enjoyed having the power, the flexibility of the Nisei Mark II counters to make our remote server a bit stronger. Another option I did try is the 2 tall remotes plan. The idea is that we actually are installing ice on both server. We're kind of weaving in and out, and then we're trying to get value of having 2 options on the table. So same idea, we're running NGO fronts and Charlottes to kind of obfuscate where the agendas are, and we're building big, tall servers in the remote, regardless which remote they're going into. From my testing, this actually felt even less consistent in some ways because we just struggled to have enough economy to res 2 remote servers and still threaten out, and then still ice and res things on central servers. There's still a lot of central pressure in the standard format, whether it's trick shot or just criminal or deep dive. So you can't just build the 2 servers. You have to kind of ice up now 4 things and res all of that. And I found that to be pretty difficult, unfortunately. So it's another option to look into, but I just don't think we have the money to do this unless, of course, a Charlotte sticks on the table for the first 7 turns and the runner can't or doesn't deal with it. Now, there's a bunch of other cards I think you can look into that we didn't make the final cut. Corporate Hospitality is something that I really liked out of the gate when Rebellion Without Rehearsal came out, because this card gives you card draw, and it gives you the ability to kind of manufacture the best Teia turn. So a lot of times with Corporate Hospitality, you got a bit of money, got a bit of card draw, and then you could grab back something like an Adrian or a Vovo, and then definitely set up a really nice Teia double install for that turn, which is nice because you're drawing a lot of cards with Corporate Hospitality. It's nice to get that click for 2 install and get them out of hand as soon as possible. Biovault is another thing that's worth looking into, so you can get some value from the advancements from La Costas and then build maybe a bit more of a glacier, kind of lock the runner out. Biovault's a very strong card for sure. Mavirus, another option too. I was hoping that without Nob Curry, you don't need the Mavirus as much, and that's kind of proving to be true, but Mavirus is really easy to play in a Teia when you can install it clicklessly on the table. The runner runs it, they run it, it will end up in archives. Amakua doesn't like that, but Mavirus is still probably worth considering, but I don't know if I'd play 2. Maybe you want to play 1, your meta will tell you if that's necessary. Now, I'll be totally honest, I was surprised by this. I was really excited to play some Teia, and from my experience on all the games I put into Teia, my conclusion is that it is not performing the way that I would hope it to perform. And I think it's just inherently, that's a very difficult idea ability to make relevant on as many board states as possible. And I think my biggest frustration with the Teia is that the bad games are really bad. If you draw a bad hand, if you flood up, your idea ability just becomes entirely irrelevant. You need a good hand. You need economy to make that Teia ability constantly relevant on more board states. And I found myself in situations where you're just cornered. You're holding 3 agendas, your remote server didn't spin up, you didn't get your defensive upgrades, and you just failed to do anything cool. You're playing a blank identity. And while I think it's really easy to look at Teia the same way you look at Asa Group, I think the Asa Group identity fires on just more board states. You're generally playing more assets and you have more plays to make, and so it's easier to take any hand and make it do something somewhat relevant in Asa Group, but I felt a bit more cornered with a Teia, where that ability to put 2 things on 2 different servers is just much more situational. Another big thing about Asa Group, and I tried this in a Teia, is Asa Group has like a power card. Fully operational is just buck wild when it pops off, and I really wanted something like this in a Teia. I tried fully operational, and it's not bad. It's 3 influence, and obviously it's gated at the 2 servers, but there was no power card that made a Teia feel fantastic, that pushed them forward, that kind of bridged the early to mid-game struggles and, you know, put you back on the map. So from my testing, a Teia was a bit difficult to make consistent, and I think if you argue that you could play this deck almost card for card and put in an Ag Infusion, and would it be better? My answer to you is almost probably, yeah, I could see it. You have more influence, you have a relevant ability. I think you could shift some of the ice around, but at the end of the day, you're still just playing efficiency, put in a remote server game, and while the Teia can do some cool tricks, I wish we could do more kickflips more consistently. Losing Tributary is not going to help, that's for sure, but unless you're building full combo at Teia, which has been a bit less consistent, this still works, it functions, it does its thing, but it's not as, the highs are not as high as I wanted them to be. No, there's still more exploration space to be done, and I think a lot of Teia players will, you know, keep their nose to the grindstone to figure this stuff out. I'm currently interested to do more testing with the sort of like moon pool fast advance of Teia's. We saw this recently at an NPC Boston out of Asmari, the idea that you can moon pool, quickly install it with a Teia or red level clearance. Also, sudden commandment looks like it could do something. This is the sort of thing that makes your Teia ability the main focus of your game plan, as opposed to like a really nice value option that fires 4 or 5 times, saves you maybe 3 to 4 credits, which is just kind of fine for efficiency Jinteki. And that's a Teia. It took us a lot of testing to get here. We have some matches coming up. Again, I'll post all the deck lists, all the iterations, and I'm really excited to hear feedback from y'all to figure out what a Teia has been working for you, what hasn't been working. Excited to hear your comments on a Teia. If you want to take a second to like the video, that definitely helps the channel grow, and enjoy the games. All right, we're back. Looks like JNet's back up. Huge shout out to JDang and the JNet crew. This is the next day. Playing again some Teia against Quetzal. We actually have a lot of barriers in the deck, and like Tattoo Bola is the single ice, you know, and the run barrier that Quetzal loves to break. So that's not fantastic. We'll see if Quetzal like builds into really heavily, because we do have like a lot of multi-subroutine barriers, things like Botu and Brun. This hand is definitely keepable. We can always start with NGO front Spin Doctor. That's fine. A lot of times I've actually been playing against Quetzal. It's like Quetzal's running like Chestushka and real pressure. I think I played against Quetzal with like Chestushka recently. All right, so we can open up, hopefully get some ice on HQ. I like Spin Doctor NGO front as a start. It looks like this NGO front looks a lot like a Charlotte, and you have to run Charlotte. So unfortunately, no ice. So the best we can do is like with Chestushka, at least Spin Doctor on the table is something. I don't really want to put a Tattoo Bola. We generally need to stack 2 barriers, but I don't think the Tattoo Bola does anything. Here we can just advance NGO front twice and discard the off-world office. I think that's kind of fine. Like, it's kind of one of the best agendas we have. We'll see what sort of pressure we see on HQ. Running R&D, so in theory, our opponent can do like run R&D, run Spin Doctor, run R&D. I think shuffling back 1 card to spend their whole turn is like not that bad for us. Like spending 3 actions to see 2 cards is like totally fine. So a lot of times after the Spin Doctor, maybe you don't run HQ. So now we have to shuffle this. That's a bummer. That's the reason why we shouldn't have done that. We have another Spin Doctor though. Credit, liberated. Okay, cool. Old school. All right, we have an Enigma. That should be our remote server. So we're going to try and do Rashida, Enigma, and then we can do NGO front. I think that's pretty okay. We haven't seen no pressure so far, and they have to hit liberated counts a couple times. So we're going to res and gain 8. And then we're going to do our play, which is going to be Rashida, and then another spin. We'll ice up. Oh, we were meant to do NGO front. Spin is fine. Spin's actually totally fine. Well, now we have to res it, and then we need to consider putting something onto HQ. I guess we'll just put an Adrian in server 3. We don't actually need the NGO front. The Spin Doctor is probably a bit better. It actually would have been fine to let, in like immediate retrospect, to let Taco Mental trash the Spin Doctor, because I don't think Taco Mental would have run archives. And then we could use the Spin Doctor for the Spin Doctor and the off-world. It's kind of minor, but actually can matter. Accessing on 0 credits. Want to try and avoid doing that because you can't steal or trash. Well, you can't trash anything. Right? Like you can't trash any of these cards now if you hit an Adrian. So if you're going to hit Liberated, you should almost always do it first there. Gain 4. I hate to res an Enigma until last click. But we'll do it if we have to. I don't think we'd count on the Adrian game. All right, draw. Res Rashida, fire Rashida. We should be able to jam something that does something for our board state. Okay, cool. So we have an Adrian already. So now that we have the Spin Doctor, we actually don't have a good Teia trigger unless we want to put 2 Adrians in the remote server, which actually might be fine. So we can do Adrian in server 4, Sai Santan on the outermost. We can even do Tattoo Bola on the outermost and keep Sai Santan for centrals. That might be fine. And then we can either work to score the off-world or just bait in the remote server. And I think those are both fine. So this gives us a free install, which is sick. Now, Tattoo Bola, you can't run back through. So if the Adrian fires, it's okay. It also makes it harder to figure out what you want to target. So we'll put this in server 3. The game's entirely in R&D right now. I don't think we care if this stuff gets trashed, so we can just put this in R&D. We'll res Adrian and slide it over. Obviously, we have 2 Adrians in the remote server, but that's fine. Because they have to play around the other one being a Lacosto or a defensive upgrade. Misinformation is super, super valuable. Botulus on the Enigma. Whoa, they hard called us really bad on this remote server. So they can get through the Tattoo Bola. We can swap it for another Tattoo Bola, but now Enigma Botulus, you don't actually need the poison vial. So we'll swap that. In theory, with the swap, we can actually install a Rashida on top of the Spin Doctor if we wanted to. We'd have to do that technically before, once Taco says like, I'm going to break this subroutine, you still have a paid ability window to react to it. That means we get Rashida on the table. Do we want that? It's hard to argue against that. It makes the Teia seem fun. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, so in theory, when they break the subroutines, they pass priority back to you for a paid ability window. You can't res during that, but we can crack a spin doctor. So once we know that they're going through it, we can crack this, shuffle these two back, and then continue, swap, tattoo bola. Then we Rashida. This is like what a Teia wants to do, but forcing people to run last click is kind of difficult. It's cool with 4-2 agendas as long as you play seamless. We're not, so you need like the extra Lacosta. Res Enigma, it just eats a botchless counter. This first subroutine doesn't matter. We do have magnets in the deck. We'd love to see a magnet here. That would be really sick. They hard cast botchless into magnet. And they don't need a poison vial that. So it's going to come down to Adrian. You can't res multiple Adrians. So it's going to come down to the money. Cool. So Adrian, I still don't know what the text on him, what it reads. The bids differ. The runner cannot access cards other than this upgrade. So we want the bids to differ. So we're just going to pay 2. We're just going to force the most out of him. Spent 1, so we can only trash Adrian. It's a good thing we have a second Adrian, and we have Hoshiko firing. So we're going to need a third ice on here for sure. 2 tattoo bolas also will do. We also now can put the NGO front where the Rashida is, so that was probably good that we got rid of that. Oh, okay, cool. Really cool. So we can do double tattoo bola. That forces a breaker. Saisentan doesn't. Like, maybe it's lethal. That's fun, I guess. We can install. We want to do install, advance. We probably don't advance the NGO front. I think we just sacrifice and we ice up HQ. Now, we still haven't seen any HQ pressure, and Takamento, like, literally has not drawn a card. Maybe 1 card. Yeah, I think 1 card. So I'm not really worried about the pressure. So we're going to go new remote, and then we'll put something on server 3. The Botu isn't end the run. The thing is, like, if you Quetzal Poison Violet, that's a pretty good way of dealing with it. So we're probably better off just doing 2 tattoo bolas. Yeah, we're probably just better off doing 2 tattoo bolas. So we want to advance this once, and we'll just put ice on HQ. If they run this NGO front, like, I don't think we care. You still have to trash it for 1 credit. Oh, rejig. Very cool. I haven't actually seen this card seeing a bit more play modernly, but like rejig on botchless is a really fun, goofy play. You gotta move it around. It's like a simul chip, but slower. So now there's pressure on R&D here, which is really cool with Poison Vial Botchless. That's kind of neat. It's just a single axis though. But like that is hard to deal with. You have to break this. You're not playing around snare. You will die to snare. But in theory, there's still 6 agendas in R&D. I don't think we score at the off-world office. I think we just put a second ice here. Poison Vial going through. Single off the top. Has money to trash. Okay, nothing yet. Okay, so we'll top deck this. Our options. Tithe is pretty good. That's annoying for R&D. Our options are we can advance this, put on R&D. I think that's probably the best. We can also hedge fund, but I want to keep our hand padded because our runner might pivot to HQ. You'd have to rejig this. But I think we'll put this on R&D. We'll advance this once, which is worth 5 credits. The second advancement's not that great. We'll advance this once. So technically we have more money. If you interact with the tattoo bolas, we have even more money as long as we keep the Botu in hand. My opponent has an interesting deck. Seems like they're flying pretty low to the ground. Like they definitely want some sort of... I think we're tunneling for singles. Okay, I think we're definitely tunneling for singles. This can happen a lot. We can just lose to it. But like, it looks like Taco is giving up on the remote server. It's just putting all the botchless here. We just need a magnet, another piece of ice. Gonna get a credit back. Saisentan's gonna eat the poison vial. I'm not that worried about a single axis. Like, it's inherently a bit volatile, but it should be about a 20% chance to find an agenda. In theory, again, it's 6 in 32. So yeah. So I don't love expending this much for a single. That being said, you can get lucky. But unless you can make the single work for you with cards like, you know, Hoshiko, stuff like that, has 3 credits, so we will pop this. Yeah, the single axis plan can be a bit difficult. All right, so we probably going to score this. We have an Adrian. We'll just put the TPR in there. We don't have a double install. Oh, we do have a double install. Do we want to forfeit sacrifice a Charlotte? I think we're okay with money that this Charlotte's like just definitely worth it. We want to keep the ice in hand with the Botu. So next turn we can do advanced TPR and then Charlotte. Maybe advanced TPR one more time. Moshing, nice. That's a card draw they need. Keiko, Steelskin Fencer Fueno. Some additional card draw. Taco's back into it on the credits. We would love a Lacosta to do most of our advancing for us. We got a Tithe. Okay, so we can put the Tithe on Charlotte just to be cute. That actually might not be that bad. So we can do advance, Tithe on server 7. We're not too worried about R&D. Again, it's still singles. If Taco steals a Bacterial, we're in a good spot. We're worried about like finality and like real true multi-axis, which I don't think we've seen yet. Now we could keep this Tithe to do like a double install, which actually might be worth something because we don't have a good double install coming up. But we're definitely going to do this. We're definitely going to do that. The question is whether we Tithe to server 7. I think we might. The other option is if we're playing around like Iru or something on archives, but I don't have a good enough read on the deck to know whether that's something we should be doing. I want to keep the Bodo in hand because of Tattoo Bola, but It's a bummer because this install lost in the Teia trigger, which is actually worth 3 credits. If we wanted to get the ice in front of it, maybe we should have. Bioband's Archives. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. This is a good way to make that single access worth it a bit for you. So Botchless, they can break 1 or 2. Breaking 2, okay. Giving us a credit, 13 to 14. It's not a huge jump point, but we, you know, we're Jinteki. We don't have that much money. Now, you still have to use the Poison Vial unless you want to take 1 to 2 damage. Oh, we're taking 1 to 2 damage. We hit a Scrubber, so just 1 damage. I'm just going to call event. I don't think I have to read the board, really. Bioband's draw 2. Let's see what the install is. And now with Charlotte, we're technically like breaking lock every turn. And I wonder if once you see the Sisantons, you get a bit more scared to face check. We haven't seen any breakers so far, besides Poison Vial Botulus. Which Quetzal goes pretty far. Like, I don't know if we're going to see E-Grid and other ways to make things. The E-Grid's a bit clumsy. It's only on res. On res cards, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, Boomerang. Cool. Put that on HQ. Oh, on the Tithe. Fantastic. So we're just not going to res that Tithe ever. It's not worth it. Because now this Boomerang will be stranded, which stops it from entering the environment. You don't want it to enter the environment. So we'll just get our 3 credits and force out a Boomerang. So there's no way to get this back into the deck. Wait, you can rejig it, right? You can rejig it? Yeah, you can rejig it. That's sick. Okay, I think we're just going to score at the TPR. We have all our money where we need it to be. We don't really have a play to make here. And now with TPR, we can install Ice clicklessly, which means if we ever get a Lacoste in server 3, we can fast advance another 4-2. But the deck is only on 1 TPR. It's a bit of a flexible piece. We can also use it to install like defensive upgrades at instant speed and put spin doctors on top of things. Not that we have more than 1 more spin doctor. It's flexible. If you want to play 3 seamless launches, it becomes more of like a major game plan where you'd run 3 TPR and try and be super aggro. With the fast advance plan. Still going for singles here. They know we have 2 Botus, so Botu will end up on R&D because we're at threat 4 now. Not that it really matters against Quetzal Poison Vial. I think the Poison Vial is going to be exhausted here though in this Saisantan. I'm imagining, unless Taco wants to just take the damage. Still just going to call event. Poison Vial trashes itself when it's empty, so it's not like it's going to get rejigged. Single. Wait, when did they get the Nisei? Did I miss that? Was that last turn? Was that last turn? So they don't know we have a Botu. Oh, they stole a Nisei. I totally missed it. I was watching the Boomerang happen. Okay. So 3 agendas in the top 22. That's less than you think. And a Yute breaks Code Gates. So it breaks the Enigma. It breaks it for 3. We're expecting more virtuals. We saw some more virtuals, but double Tattoo Bola might be enough for now. So we have a Nisei here. So we can just install the Nisei. It's Tattoo Bola, Botu. So we can do install advance. That might be enough. It's hard to tell what they're capable of. They have only 3 credits. They have 4 liberated counts, 1 on Paladin coming in. But Tattoo Bola into Enigma. This is already pretty expensive. And then we still have an Adrian game. I think we're going to just hope the Adrian game works out for us. No double install. We'll just go from there. Again, they really need to represent some sort of multi-axis. Because just going for singles on R&D, you can get lucky. It's not easy. Biobends again. We're going back. Whoa, was Saisantan just firing? Neat. Gonna get a credit back. We actually could have installed advance on the Nisei. It might have been more important than the hedge fund. Because these Tattoo Bolas are actually really cheap. Yeah, probably install advance is better. Because then if we do top deck something, we can jam the next agenda. Or a jam Lacosta with TPR and win from there. So we hit a Steel Skin. We hit a Laborites. They lost an Adore, which is their Sentry Breaker. Adore, mind you, does break Saisantan for 3 credits if you're fully set up. You don't see a lot of these like dance breakers, the disco breakers. Buy it a draw 2. Let's see if we get down to 20. That's what we're expecting for multi-axis, right? Oh, second Boomerang. Okay. Targeting the outermost. That's actually really good. That means that they can contest the remote server. Maybe we need another barrier. It's going to come down to the Adrian side game. Rejig the Botulus. Okay. Onto the Enigma. Technically cheaper. So we're going to build a better server here. Okay, undo. Rejig. Because the Enigma you can technically break for 3 credits. It's still pretty expensive. Okay, on this Tattoo Bola. That means we are good to go. So if we don't res this Tattoo Bola, the Boomer gets stranded. Is that fine? That honestly might be fine. Because the next Tattoo Bola gets broken for free or Botulus. It's going to get bounced to hand. So it comes down to the Adrian game. And then paying 3 credits means we can pay 2 on Adrian. Yeah, I think we're fine with this. Yeah, I think we're just going to not res this Tattoo Bola ever. We're just going to overinstall it and get the Botu on it. Yeah, so this stops the Boomerang from shuffling back. Obviously, it's still good. The Tattoo Bola, the bigger fact with this is that you have 2 barriers, but with 2 ways to break 2 barriers. It's rough. Botchless on Tattoo Bowl is a bit cursed because now you're going to lose it from the environment. And we'll get a both two on there. So we just need to win a side game, which we do more often than not. Suggests the math. Here's if we had like a 3-2 we could put on the table, or even if we had a Nisei and a 4-2, or sorry, if we had an Ice and a 4-2. This Enigma now is pretty expensive. Yute, 1 for 1 strength at minimum, 1 to break X code gate subroutines, use the ability once per turn. Oh, actually, they cost 2 because they don't have to break all code gate subroutines. They can choose their X. I thought X is equal to the subroutines. The fact that the upside text on this is just like reasonable breaker is really funny. This if it was an Anoetic is really rough, and that's why the double Adrian stack is kind of nice. Okay, so we had timely public release. We could install something on top of this and throw it into the bin and hopefully draw Spin Doctor. Not a very good play. We also could have TPR'd like before they made the run to get another ice on the server, which actually might have been correct because that is free. Yeah, that might have been an okay use of TPRs. Just get an ice on here after they did their boomerang play. That actually might have been correct. Is use the TPR as like a sort of interrupt. It doesn't really make a lot of sense during a run because now it comes down entirely to the Adrian side game. What does Adrian say? The bids differ. The runner cannot access cards other than this upgrade. They paid 2. Bummer. We paid 2 twice, but they're now on game point. We have a Brawn though. That's okay. Not great into Poison Vial, but it's okay. So let's break lock. Let's break lock. And Geofront. All right. Well, that's the cheapest way to put ice on the server. What is the best ice here? Like Tattoo Bowl is totally fine. We can keep the Boomerang here. We don't have to trash it. I think we do Bronze. Like now they can still just run R&D and win. Oh, we should move Adrian to R&D actually. Actually, sorry. Might not matter, but Adrian and R&D here is where you want to put Adrian. Another Poison Vial, so Bren's actually pretty bad. Botu was better. You're going to take at least 1 damage here. Then we could lose. Kasi String. Whoa! Do they have charge synergies? Is there like a Dag in this deck? There's like a lot of charge targets. This is 1 Botchless and Size Time. We should ice this up, actually. Because there's 2 and 23 that we lose on this axis. No. Great. We have an Adrian. That's good. Double Adrian doesn't really matter. It matters never. We'll draw once. Hedge Fund. Okay. So I actually like the Saisantan is taxing at the Poison Vial. We definitely want to get a piece of ice here. We could get a Brawn, which means you can Quetzal Poison Vial and then 1 Poison Vial run does it. I think we're okay with that. The other option is Botu. With Botu, you can do Quetzal Poison Vial as well, but you also can't click through it. I think we'd rather use Quetzal here. So we'll put Brawn on R&D, and I think we'll advance NGO front once to see if it engenders interaction, because resing this Tithe would be fine. In theory, we could have drawn once more and jammed. It's just like any agenda we can't score out. We need a Lacosta. We could move Adrian to R&D, but I actually want them to overextend on R&D. It's like still 10% chance for them to win on a single in R&D, which I don't think those odds are that bad. In fact, here it might have been wrong to install an R&D because we need them to overextend a bit. Because if they're not running, they're, you know, making money. Labor Rights hits a strike fund, trashes Katurga, Hippo strike fund. Interesting. Hippo makes sense. Shovel back Labor Rights, Adore, and Botchless. So Adore is pretty expensive. I'm not that worried about Adore. By the time it comes down and you actually use it to break stuff, like you're paying at a minimum 7 credits. Here we'll value res Tithe because it's a Tithe. Hit an Adore. I wonder if that's someone that was shuffled back. That's rough. And you have to respect this if it's a Charlotte. We'll just get our money. Okay. So we have Brawn, which you can click through. You can tattoo and a Poison Vial. You have this. You have Botu, which you actually can get through the server. It's that weird. You can get through the server. So in theory, we need to like install another Tattoo Bola, install an Nisei Advance, because this server is assailable. Oh man, how much would we love a Vovo on this server? In theory, we could have used the TPR token. We could have kept the TPR token to be able to install this ice clicklessly. Taco's back in the money. There's a twinning. So now the multi-axis on centrals might matter. Luckily, we have a Nisei Coast token here. We don't honestly have to score this out. It puts us on game point. That's fine. And we can just move Adrian to centrals. I wonder if this deck is on... Like, this deck seems like it might have some interesting splashes, like Iru. Iru would be fun. Botchless, okay, on a Botu. So no matter what, you can get through that with a Poison Vial. So ideally, we just want to tax out all of these Poison Vials and then Nisei counter. We want to basically make the run as expensive as possible, but still, like, it's hard to interact with this. We'll res the Botu. Our money's not great. Let's pretend it's not great. So Boltu is either one of counter or Quetzal. You might as well Quetzal here and keep the Botulus. Oh, use a Botulus token. I think you want to Quetzal there because you're not going to use the Quetzal unless you plan to run again this turn. Lost the lib, okay. And here you can either use all the Botuluses. I think with Adrian here, we don't use the Nisei token. We just pay as much as we can. Or no, we pay middle, I think. So we have another Adrian. We can do Adrian Lacosta. Paid 0, so they can only access Adrian. Oh, they use the twinning counter. Oh, you can, yeah, they use the twinning counter reflexively. You just want to fix that. All right, so they would have seen 2 cards there. Let's see if the top deck would have done something. And Geofront, okay. So we can make them like go for it, which is if we install, we want Lacosta here, we can install Geofront. We can advance Geofront, and then we probably want to play Hedge Fund. This server is relatively annoying with only 2 cards in hand. We still have the Nisei token. We have an Adrian as well. At this point, we're like, what happens if we draw once? If we draw once, we draw into a 4-2, we're okay. Okay, Rashida. So we want Rashida in server 3. Lacosta in server 7 is totally fine because we just need Lacosta in a server to be able to win off of the TPR combo. So we'll do this here. And then I think we'll just hedge fund. We can put the NGO front on top of Lacosta. I think we're just going to hedge fund here. So the idea is if the Rashida fires, we have to survive 1 more turn. We could also just lose on HQ. Yeah, they might pivot HQ here. Here, if we had the agenda goes on remote server. So I think that if you want to go for the HQ pressure, you wait for the Rashida. But here we don't have a huge incentive to res. It costs us 5 credits. We're trying to score at the end of the game though with very little money. So if we res this, it taxes out a poison vial. I think that's probably good for us overall because we have a lot of like big barriers with multiple subroutines. But I think if we had an agenda, would definitely go in server 3, and we did click to draw. So if we had an agenda, it goes into server 3. So I'm not sure if this run is going to be fantastic. If they trash the Adrian, we're a bit upset. Okay, they used the 20 on that too. We're even happier because now we don't only have to worry about 120 counter. But yeah, the idea is, admittedly, now the Rashida goes off. If we draw an agenda, maybe we get a Volvo in server 3. That would be sick. Oh no! Oh no! We wanted a 2-pointer. We got bacterial instead. Okay, that's cool. It's so nasty. I can res like none of it. Okay, well now we know this is in hand, so they have a 40% chance of winning the game. That's fine. So we want to do bacterial programming, and then we get Vovo into server 7. I think pretending their remote server doesn't exist is not something you want to do because we only have 9 credits. Vovo is going to change that, but now we need to just do advance, and we'll be on 7 credits, 6 with Vovo. And the question is, how much of this ice can we actually res? Like Tattoo Bola, this is Boomerang, so we have to res this Tattoo Bola, this Brawn. Like it's not that easy for us to score out here. We have border controls in the list. I'm assuming you're running all 4-2s. I'm really lamenting my Kasi trash. Oh no. Yeah, Kasi would be kind of fun if you're on only 4-2s. We have real 5-3s though. So we have to figure out if we do advance here. If we do advance, we go on 7 with Vovo, we go on 6. So this Tattoo Bola is free. That uses Quetzal probably. This Tattoo Bola obviously gets boomeranged. That's 6 flips into a Sai Santan. So we're at 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I think we can do it. I think with the 2 Tattoo Bolas, we can afford to do this because they're positioned before our expensive ice. All right, we can still lose on HQ if you get a 20 counter and you make 1 good run. Again, Sai Santan is pretty good. You might have to take some risk damage into the Botulus because we know the sort of Yute is not coming back anytime soon. Or not the Yute, the Odore. Pardon my pronunciation is probably bad. Scrubber, okay. That's a connection, so you can't actually use Paladin to charge twinning. We also can, if it's like a last click run, we can in theory like install an ice and get the bacterial programming out of our hand in server 7. If you run 2 last click, we just use the TPR to install an ice here to put the TPR, the bacterial here in server 7. So you can't run last click. Yeah, I don't think they want to scrub it down. I think they just want to install something for twinning. You don't want to do Paladin Poema, mind you, can't do connections. It's often missed in person. District 99, whoa, cool. Pretty slow, but we just want to get a twinning counter. So you have to run this click or not at all. All right, we're totally safe now. Nisei counter and TPR, actually we are totally safe. I'm just going to do this. That just speeds things up. In theory, you let them break everything and spend their money, but obviously here it doesn't matter. There's our Lacosta. Scored a 9, fantastic. Love it. Good game. Thanks for the game. Cool deck you got. And we're like really fortunate Taco went for a bunch of single axes instead of like building up that siege engine and getting to the twinning sooner than later. Because if Taco didn't go for those singles and build up the twinning like 2 or 3 turns sooner, like we're actually in a problem. We're gonna have to play Quetzal eventually for the alphabet series. There's only one queue. Let's give it another shot. All right, we're playing against Padma. Oof, this hand. I don't know if we love it. So Padma obviously is going to be running R&D. So we want to get something on R&D that is annoying to deal with quickly. So the idea is if we put a tattoo bola, you can still like run and bounce off of it to charge your whatever you're charging with Padma. It's kind of hard to tell. Cataloger is obviously very strong. I think we want to mulligan this. We don't actually have like a really good opening play unless we want to do like La Costa behind tattoo bola, and then I don't know. I think we're gonna mulligan this for sure. Trick shot, mind you, with Padma is absurd. We definitely need ice up R&D pretty fast. That is a better hand, technically. In most respects, it's a better hand. We can do Charlotte, Rashida, Advanced Charlotte, Braun. They kept. That's terrifying. Oh, NGO front's even better, so we don't have to like sacrifice Rashida. Best of luck, have fun. Okay, so we want to do a Teia stuff as much as possible. So the idea is that we can do NGO front and then Rashida, install Braun, advance NGO front. That's probably the best case. You can still deal with a lot of this stuff. Shaper doesn't really deal with Braun too quickly, too well. Now we're keeping R&D entirely open, but this is technically something to deal with, and this is also technically something to deal with because this looks more like a Charlotte, and you don't want to let Charlotte stay. So we'll see if a trick shot here just bodies us. It could. Admittedly, you don't exactly click through Braun anymore. Onacom Strike Fund. Bravado into the Braun. Okay, really cool. So now we have to trash the NGO front to res a Braun. This could be a Saisentan. We have a Braun now. And now the subroutines are going to fire. We don't have ice to install with this. Bravado, Strike Fund. We're seeing a lot of influence. So this looks like prepaid Ashen. Good stuff. So nothing to install, but we get our Rashida. And we have our ice res, which is good because we want to put a Charlotte behind it for the next little bit. Okay, Tithe on R&D is just good enough. We have Adrian Charlotte. So this is a good hand. Like card draw is so important in a Teia because without burst draw, like you're exhausting your resources and you can't often do the cool thing you want to do, which is a Teia stuff. So this on R&D is fine. I think we're going to attract some amount of pressure on HQ because we've drawn through 10 cards. So this almost definitely goes on R&D. Then we can do Adrian Charlotte, Advanced Charlotte. From there, we're every turn going to try and put another piece of ice on there and then eventually get a La Costa. That's usually the plan. Do we put the Tattoo Bola in front of it? Because we can do Adrian Tattoo Bola, install Rashida. That's actually probably better. Yeah, that's much better. New remote, Tattoo Bola for free. Again, ice is always free, so you want to do it in that order. Now it's a 1 and 3 on HQ. This is a really easy HQ run for our opponent. If they have burner or they just run it. And they could easily be on legwork, which is not good for us. Because again, we've drawn through 10 cards. So you're actually expecting 2 agendas to be in there. One might be in server 1. Diesel for 4. So just a dirty laundry into HQ would be pretty good for them. We definitely want an ice on HQ. Cataloger, okay. Bravado to Tithe. This is so aggressive. Now, last click Cataloger, I don't love it. We luckily have a Spin Doctor in hand, and this could be like a Saisentan. It's not going to end the game. Tithe is just annoying enough. Cataloger and 3 charges is really hard to play around. We're going to take a card out of the hand. First time hitting that in Shaper. Okay. Feels bad. And if they look at 4 here, we'd actually be more upset of them getting the access. So, because we're just going to put Spin Doctor on the table. We're also going to break this lock. That's sometimes bad for us because now they can just run HQ. So we're going to res the Rashida, fire the Rashida. We're going to see what they set up. They're going to know they know all these cards. So now we need to get some better ice on HQ or on R&D. We need ice on HQ. So our play is probably La Costa. I think here with their board state, we can probably score out an agenda. So we want to do La Costa Spin Doctor on the table. We can do Nisei token. I think actually we want Off-World Office a bit sooner. And then we do Thimble Rig probably on R&D. Either that or on the Spin Doctor. This is an interesting turn. Because they know we have an Off-World, so they're definitely going to go HQ. So if we do La Costa Spin Doctor, install Off-World, install Thimble Rig, we're down to 9 credits. This is a fair bit of work to deal with Adrian. Like a lot of people just discount the Adrian server. And then we still have Tithe if they go back for a Cataloger, which is not great. It might be better that we ice R&D, genuinely. Because HQ is still 1 and 5. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay. So this goes into the server for sure. So now we can either put this on HQ or we can put this on R&D. I don't know. HQ is going to be a 1 and 3. They still have a Cataloger into a Spin Doctor. And if we break lock with Spin Doctor, like we need ice on HQ. We'll just do HQ. This is fine. Move Adrian now. Now they can't just send it through the Tithe. That's for sure. We'd love it to be a Saisentan here. Going for the Biobands. Going to draw 3 cards off this and some. Let's see what they install cheaply. If it's like a Muse, a Breaker, an SMC, that's not good for us. Remove a tag? What? Did you have a tag? How did you have a tag? I guess they had nothing to install. Their hand is only events? That's so wacky. Harmony? Okay. So we definitely need ice on here. So if the Cataloger doesn't end, We're gonna have to get res that spin doctor, which can put more pressure on HQ. Hopefully we draw into ice. I don't think we're gonna score the off-world next turn. We're just gonna try and get 2 ice here. So the cool thing to do with Cataloger is that if you put the agenda 3 down, if you're playing around spin doctor, they could draw 2, see nothing. I still think we shuffle. I think so. So there still might be an agenda on top of the deck, so they can still thinking, because some players do that. I think we're just gonna shuffle these back in. Actually, no, I'm gonna call their bluff. Oh, in theory, we still have priority here. I'm technically glad that they goofed that. We want to let them trash. I don't think it's that important to shuffle these in. And I think we have ice coming up because they didn't hit the button. They could have hit the button there. That's a bit awkward. So Res La Costa, which advances the off-world office. We're going to top deck ice. Oh, Rashida. We'll draw. Okay, that's what we want. So that goes on R&D, and I think we just play a hedge fund. Adrian's fine there. So next turn we can score the off-world, jam the Nisei, and then we're on game point in theory. Stanyak, again, we know has a hand of events. We would love to find we'd love to find a Saisentan. It's only a matter of time. I think he should know that that's a Thimblerig, of course. Not much we can do about that. We could, in theory, lose to like a big, like you make a Cataloger run and then click, click, click and just eat up everything. Do we have to advance? I think we do double advance this jam the Nisei. We can put Rashida on the table. If he doesn't deal with it, we haven't seen a trick shot yet. He doesn't deal with it. That's nice. We would love a third piece of ice here, both for R&D and for server 1. Classic Shaper U getting built time and time again. Nuka for 3. There must be breakers in here. I wonder if there's just like Mayflies or whatever, the cheapest thing, or like Melandrism, like whole Melandrism decks. Those are things. So now we have to res a Thimblerig. Okay. I think we fire the Rashida and we like slow roll the Nisei. Free Rashida. Choose a card in server 1. Okay. Swap Thimblerig. That's actually interesting. We could put the Tattoo Bola there. That's interesting because then they don't know what they need to break this. They technically don't know with this server, but the server at least has a Adrian on it. Yep. Okay. Border control on R&D is cute. Border control on their remote server is also cute. This upgrade looks nice, which is good. If we install the border control, we don't have ice in hand for Tattoo Bola, which is a bummer. So obviously we're going to lose on R&D sooner than later. I think we would much rather have this on R&D. So I think we put this on R&D. We have a spin doctor, which is good. We can keep that on the table to deal with the Cataloger. I think, well, now that we took the barrier off of it, like stacking 2 barriers is a bit scuffed, but it is what it is. So I think we just put the Vovo on R&D, which is obviously good there. So they might be able to contest this. If that's the case, we just need Adrian to work for us. And that might like cool down the pressure in R&D for a couple turns. Gamble to draw. They definitely need pressure. Pinhole. Okay, they're going for the Vovo. I'm totally fine with that. Unless they're going for the Adrian, but I think they're going for the Vovo. Oh, La Costa. Sick. That's fine. Stops us from being a 5-3. But we still probably just score it out and discard a hedge fund or a Charlotte. Swap Thimblerig. Yeah. So now you need all 3 breakers. Okay, we have an Nisei counter that's really strong against any like run-based pressure event. We'll get rid of the Charlotte. Next turn we can install the Nisei. We actually could consider moving Adrian to HQ. I just hate losing a cheap Adrian. Like, that's the problem with Adrian. Sometimes I don't want to use that Spark. Oh, I guess this is a Lobisomi Orca. Finding the early Orca, that's no good. You definitely want the Lobisomi first. I should have seen this coming from a mile away. Swap Thimblerig? No. So now only can break code gates. Sentries. So now that he can only break sentries, which, great. He can break Tithe for 2. What a steal. So that means we can put Nisei in the server, and then we can do 2 double advances, 1 on the NGO front, 1 on the Nisei. This is still barrier into Brawn, into, like, you have to do, the thing is, like, we're 1 spark away from it being bad, but admittedly, if you spark, because we have barrier into barrier, you don't actually break Brawn into Tattoo Bola, because you only have 1 Labisomi counter, unless you like rigging up or like do something tricky. So I think we are going to do this, server 1. We actually don't need that much money. So Spin Doctor might be better. I think it actually might be better to do NGO front both 2 for free. Yeah, we do NGO front both 2. We'll move Vovo over. So we do NGO front both 2, install Nisei, advanced Nisei. I think that's much better. Well, not NGO front, then Spin Doctor. Nah, F it. NGO front. If they run it, they run it. Server 1, advance. We'll res Vovo, slide Vovo over. So now we res Tattoo for free. They come in not in alphabetical order, in the order that you've resed them on the table. So it always asks for Adrian when I think it's Vovo, and then I mess it up. Good stuff. So now they really need a spark. Oh, they just installed the Lobisomi. Okay, so now they can't deal with double barrier, which is actually really interesting for Thimblerig. We want to get the Thimblerig where you can't cheaply break it with Lobisomi, which means probably actually destroy it. Because if we destroy the only code gate we have res, your Lobisomi gets taxed out by the fact that we have all barriers. It's actually a big part of our game plan now to destroy our code gate breaker. I think they're pushing a remote server. Losing the Vovo would be rough. But I think you have to go for Adrian here, right? Yeah, that's okay. They can't run this. Or they can't break it more accurately. Oh, trick shot. Very, very cool. Oh, that stupid thimble rig. So we have to just... Wait, why does this... Oh, Captain, never mind. Oh, we were being very clever until we weren't. So now we have to res the border control. That drops us to 9 credits. We have to either Nisei this. Because trading a Nisei for a Nisei is totally safe. Oh yeah, Padma can just charge the Lobisomu as long as it's not empty. So we have to empty the Lobisomu. Fire all? Oh, that's a lot of money for us. So now we need to deplete the Lobisomu. So Botu we res for 4. Seems good. 6 strength, so you actually have to boost a couple times. That's still 5 credits. Like, that's still money. There's 4 on the trick shot, mind you. But once the Lobisomu is empty... Lost a mad dash, love it. End the run? Yeah. Wow, we get to keep our Nisei token. I'll get rid of Charlotte. Like, we just need to empty this thing out. Because you can only charge a card that has counters on it, says the text. Swap Thimble Rig. We need to put Thimble Rig where it cannot be dealt with, which is like innermost of server 1. Ugh, drew another Nisei. That's fine eventually. Okay, we could have considered slow rolling it. It's a bit risky. We'll keep that there. A burner is a problem for us. But now it's really tricky. We can swap the Thimble Rig for the border control on server 1, and they have to run it 4 times. This is a good res. This is a Thimble Rig. We can't really res a Thimble Rig, so you're just going to get a good run here. 1 and 3. We've seen 3 agendas. The amount of barriers kills these duo. Spin Doctor, okay? Yeah, I have to play around it. It's neat. So 50-50 here. Hedge fund, we got lucky. I don't know if you go back. Okay. So we just need to tax out the Lobisomu counter. So this is again 2 Lobisomu counters. They can see Cataloger. They trash the Spin Doctor. We don't mind too much because if we put the Nisei in their remote server, we probably win. I totally forgot about Padma's effect. It hasn't mattered all game until it really does matter. Oh, they're just charging and giving us 3 credits. Whoa. Running archives? It's not a deep dive. Why do you run archives? We threw out 1 card willingly. So now we swap these 2. So now this remote server is like nearly impossible. We go server 1, no trigger, advance. What do we need here? We can put another piece of ice somewhere. So the idea is here, you run it once, border control, run it twice, Nisei, run it 3 times, Nisei. So it's like hard, but we'll probably, you know, with all these barriers, and we want to keep the ice in hand because of Tattoo Bullet. Well, actually, we don't want to res trees because of Orca. Like, our ice is actually really bad for us. If all we res is barriers, we can't tax Lobisomu. I have been seeing a lot of decks that are running, like, specifically now that you lost Tributary, I like having Thimble Rig because of flexibility, but, like, just don't run code gates. I think we advanced this once. Do we need money? We need 3 for this. This is 2, or it's free. Actually, we don't need money. So what would we possibly do here? Advance again doesn't do much. I think we just do this. Move Vovo? No. So Stanyek has to make a lot of runs, and the most Lobisomu counters, you'd have to run R&D, get through Thimble Rig Brawn, and then we can move Thimble Rig onto HQ. Trick Shot's a good start. So that Captain Padma charges. So we don't want this Thimble Rig to be broken, unless we want to move the Thimble Rig to a different server. So thinking. Because as soon as you break it, you get more Lobisomu charges. So I think we let this get broken once. We swap it with this on HQ. And then we see the Brawn go through. Yeah, we just trash this later. This needs to get broken because otherwise you can just charge off of this. Well, that's actually not that. It doesn't matter where it is to get charged. But if you spend a counter on the Brawn here, we're pretty happy. So I do think we do swap this. I would need longer to think about this. This is tricky. We just don't want to let the Lobisomu charge because there's only so many barriers. We also need to keep cards in hand because of Botu. So we actually might run out of cards eventually. Fire all. Surprising. So now we want to make this run as deep as possible to use as many barrier charges as possible, let alone credits. 2 for strength. Technically 3 subs. You can take the net damage if you want. The whole barrier server is pretty good. The question is how many times can we fire this? Break 2 subroutines. Trash 1 card from HQ. My... Oh, sorry. They broke both of those, yeah. So it's a free Tattoo Bola. I honestly don't think we swap this. Because we can't get a sentry on the table because of Lobisomu. Okay, that stops that there. So now that's game. GG. Barrier lockout. The enemy barriers are better than they've ever been, it seems. Triple advance. Let's go. Good game. Very tricky. Comes down to the counters there. There is a downside. Again, playing Kit makes that much less of a downside. Padma has that workaround too. All the barriers is definitely a nightmare. Too slow for remote. Only barely though. Only barely. I think that all the early aggression with the spin doctor on the table, like it could have capitalized. It didn't seem like it did. I think they whiffed 1.5 catalogers. But yeah, the barrier stacking is like really good into these sort of decks. Again, if we didn't res the Thimble Rig, it's a different game. It's really wild. I should have maybe seen that coming and just decided not to use code gates. But I think we needed the Thimble Rig. It was a panic code gate. Oh, I wonder if there's a play that they're meant to run R&D at least. I think they actually break the Thimble Rig for 1 just to get the low assembly charge. Hey, cheers. Catch you around. All right, let's do another one. All right, playing against some Ken. We're going to see some central pressure. Double barrier opening with a hedge fund's an okay start. Hard to play around Ken somewhat. Like, you have to slow down if you want to not worry about that central pressure. But I think the biggest issues we run into is that, like, Rashid and remote server is going to die to pinhole, to inside job, to boomerang. There's just so much, thanks you to, that it's a trickier play. This hand's not bad for sure. We have an econ option that's not board dependent. That's always a nice start. This is the only like operation in the whole dang deck, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, NGO front's great. Because now, in theory, if we could ignore all board state, we could do Botu, a hedge fund. Like, we could do Rashida, NGO, Braun, advance. I think we're going to do that next turn. This turn, we're going to draw once. For an economy play, that was not it. And we'll just put a nice on HQ. Now, this is Botu. It's a bit expensive. Sometimes we won't end the run, but we at least want to have some amount of ice here. We can still get, like, you know, boomerang into diversion's a pretty good start when the corporation's on 9 credits. Forcing our money where our mouth is. We're going to have to res this anyways. Might as well take 2 damage out from the hand. Did Bill keep? Did he mull? He mulled. Let's hit a breaker. Hit Hermes and an inside job. Love that start. So we would trash a card from hand to end the run. The worst card in her hand? Couldn't tell you what it is. It's probably Rashida. I don't think Rashida's going to stick for a minute. You can't really afford to like run into this multiple times. And Boomerang's really awkward into it as well. So NGO front's how we're going to get back into this. Ideally, we draw something else like NGO front and a spin doctor, just something to get tempo. Lost to Charlotte. That would be another good install. All right, we can do NGO Botu and build a remote server. So we'll do this and that just so that we have an ability. Oh, actually, that's not right. We definitely want Braun instead. So this shows that we have 2 ice in hand. No big deal. I like Braun a bit earlier because it's a bit cheaper in terms of cards in hand. And this definitely looks like an NGO front. Could look like a Charlotte, sometimes a double advance. Early Miss Bones to contest what looks like a Charlotte. It's just going to be an NGO front, which we love because we install clicklessly. It's a fair bit better in this deck. R&D is open. 5 credits to trash. Miss Bones are only on installables, seeing a card and walking away. Give us a Sisenton. Hedge fund. Nice. Okay. Can we score behind a Braun? No. Please stop drawing agendas. This on R&D is fine. In theory, we want something on the outermost in a remote server as well to deal with inside jobs. So I think actually we can just both do on R&D. And then we'll do Tithe Braun as a remote server, just so it plays around inside job and boomerang a bit nicer. We're lucky we drew into hedge fund, but also we have drawn in 13 cards, 3 agendas. That's only slightly higher than you'd think. But these are a lot of my frustrations with the Teia. Is like, you are dependent on your card draw more than most corp identities. Nice. We're not going to res that. And that's a problem. Because if you draw bad, the game is over and you don't fire your ability. Like, we have no way to fire our ability for the next little while. And that's just like inherently a problem. That's been one of my issues with the Teia. Okay, Spin Doctor is a nice one to use. So we can do Spin Doctor, Offworld, Tithe Advance. It's risky. It's definitely really risky, but I think we're going to go for it. Oh, wait, no, we should do this like the correct way. Hold on, don't tilt, don't tilt. New remote, this goes on server 2. This goes in server 2, and we advance it once. Now, we're only on 8 credits, so we can barely res this stuff. And if we can't, we can't. Spin Doctor is probably going to get Miss Bonesed out. And we can't really run R&D. Luckily, we got a Hermes out. And that is one of the biggest pressure cards. So we can't res here. I don't think we really need a Spin Doctor. Lost to Rashida, that's fine. Now, they might want to run the Spin Doctor because they miss Bones. Kurapira, inside job. That's incredible. That's a really good second inside job. Luckily, they're not going to be able to break the Braun. So they're going to get through the Tattoo Bull, and we're going to be what I would call bankrupt. The question is whether they want to click through the Braun subroutine. They probably don't have to. We don't afford much here. But now they know they can just run through this first click next turn, and we're cooked. Unless we overinstall it with Spin Doctor, which we don't have the option to do. They actually click through that subroutine. I think you don't really need to. It's unlikely we have ice in hand. I could see why you'd want to, because it could fire like a Teia ability, and that's obviously not good for you. Do we want to Spin Doctor this stuff back in? I don't think. Well, we kind of do with Charlotte and NGO. Yeah, we probably should res this anyways. Those are good. Adrian, the most server is good. So we want to top deck Charlotte or NGO. It's our best econ plays out of the hole we're in. So I think here we do Adrian, Charlotte. Sorry, Adrian, Spin Doctor. We're weak to Diversion. And you might be thinking, Andre, how are we going to score that agenda? Well, if we're on 3 credits, we can threaten to score it out. And now with Adrian, the remote server, you can't just like click through all of it. Hermes, buckle up. Who knows what's going to happen? Carpe Diem HQ, not going to make the run. We definitely want to get to threat 4 as soon as possible. Volvo is really good, as much as we've res, unfortunately, a bit of our ice here. I think we are just going to put back in face down in a hedge fund. And scoring out the off-world, bounce R&D, it's whatever. We're going to discard 2 cards, though, which is a bummer. It's just like really expensive to slow roll this, because if Bill gets an access on R&D and bounces our double advance off-world, we almost definitely lose the game there. So you just can't lose. It's like so expensive to leave agendas on the table. Oh, but we want to so much. Kurapira breaks this for like 6 credits. It's like doable. Run events. No dirty laundries, 2 carpes, 2 bravados, 2 inside jobs. One of them removed are from damage. So unfortunately, we're going to have to discard 3 cards here. I don't think we can afford to do that. So we can do credit, hedge fund, discard 1. I think we probably do La Costa Vovo. But if we click to, like, it's so bad here. Because if we click to 5, like, we just get hedge fund, diversion probably. So maybe we do Spin Doctor to manage our hand and we throw out the agendas, and then you have to run archives, then R&D. I just don't like putting all the agendas in R&D. So that would mean we would probably put Vovo on the table. La Costa server 2. No, we put Spin Doctor on the table. That's really rough. So let's get rid of our... Is our hand safer? It might be. Again, this is very expensive to run. Yeah, if we get diversion, we can duck most of it. That's fine. Seemed like a hard turn for sure. We probably should have advanced once. Admittedly, with La Costa, we can still res it and double advance. And if that's the case, we can score the off-world and still repair R&D. We'll res the Spin Doctor here. That means we're going to discard more cards. We may not have planned that out well. I don't think... Do we not res the Spin Doctor? Thinking. That we should have done the Vovo by a mile. Yeah, we'll slow roll it. Now that's Miss Bones. I think we're... Oh, no, we might as well shuffle it back in because we have no more recursion. Yeah, that taxes out Miss Bones. That was not right. Because now we're super flooded. I think we've kind of punted the game a wee bit here. We did not think that through. Biobands archives. Debbie runs. Our value engine pieces seem to be up and running. There's a Carmen. That's okay. Not a lot of money otherwise. But our hand is going to be 3 agendas for sure next turn. Unless we like La Costa and just like cook. I think we definitely res the La Costa so we can do advance, double install. It's the best we got. So let's see what gets bounced. If we leave R&D open, we know most of the agendas are in hand. I don't think we care too much. So now we can install... Well, Vovo's useless. We can still do Vovo because it looks good. So we can do Nisei Vovo. Do we res the Vovo? I don't think we res the Vovo. If they spend a click running it, we're happy with that idea. Which means we probably don't want the Tattoo Bowl into Kurapira is like really difficult. It's good for economy, but like you don't want to charge cheap Kurapira charges. And then I think we get rid of this Vovo. We could be on a Nisei next turn. Not a lot of board state that can be damaged by Hermes. R&D is obviously wide open. There's only, I think, 5 agendas in 30, so 1 and 6. So you need multi-access, and generally these decks are actually still running twinning. Like I don't expect to see Maker's Eye. Now, if this is an agenda, like we're cooked, but such is the world of Hermes. Just gotta get lucky sometimes, or not get unlucky, which is usually worse. A worse feeling. Again, Brawn is pretty expensive. It's 8 credits. Tithe is just annoying. Credit. They might be charging this. Yeah, nice. So now it's going to come down to Adrian. I think we have enough money to guarantee Adrian. They might just dodge the damage, give us a credit. But this is why you play around an inside job. Like Tithe into Brawn. We did that intentionally and it pays off. Getting your big ice on the Atomos is the worst. Oh, yeah. Ooh, that actually makes a huge difference. Because we need some amount of Adrian credits and Debbie is going to help because now they're on 10. They actually break all of it. Okay. So this costs up to 8. Again, you want to break all of it. Okay, so now Adrian actually does survive on both angles. I just need to read the text on Adrian because I don't know what it does. If the bids differ, the runner cannot access cards other than this upgrade. If the bids match, the runner cannot access this upgrade. If the bids differ, the runner cannot access cards other than this upgrade. So I have to pay 1. If the bids match, the runner cannot access this. I have to pay 1. Still don't know what this card does. It will get trashed to Miss Bones. So now we're incentivized to score that thing out. And by incentivized, I mean bankrupt. It's okay, we have a Nisei token? They're on 0 credits. Do we actually have to do that? Because they can just run and triple click through the Brawn. I think they would. Yeah, we have to score this. We could res the Vovo. Obviously pretty dubious. But now nothing gets bounced to Hermes, so who's laughing now? He'll be useful later. We've also now hit threat 4, so Botu is even bigger. We're running this? Oh, dealing with Lacoste and everything. That's smart. Unless this is a misclick. All right, that was a misclick. I think there's a chance that you want to deal with this stuff. It's not that important. Because especially when you're in 0 credits, you have your own problems. Buy band's good. So we're holding the game point. Problem is we're not holding money. Mystic, nice. Got a lot of run events, it turns out, in a Ken deck. Good. Good. Okay. Thimblerig is just good enough. If we put that on R&D, that will hold out R&D. I think if we do bacterial programming, it's a bit expensive, so we have to go a bit slow. Now, if we put something here in server 2, they can always run through the Tithe, run through the Bran, triple click through the Brawn. They don't use Cure Pure, so they don't get a counter. If they do that and spend the whole turn on it, I don't think we're too upset about it, honestly. The worst thing is that it'll open R&D. So actually, I think we want to draw something that we can do a triple install, like the 3rd ice on server 2. Then we are secure to push the bacterial. Double click, ice, R&D is fine. We're assuming the breaker is Unity. So Enigma goes a bit further. We'll move over there for sure. So we need to get this res sooner than later. A diversion here would be pretty rough, but next turn we can do credit hedge fund double install. That'd be okay for us because their economy is floundering a bit. We did get the big barriers, which the deck can't deal with very well. No run event that turn. Love it. Okay, so there's one more inside job. Inside job HQ is probably the worst line for us. We still have an Nisei token. Oh, we probably could have just installed. Oh no, we need more money to score out. Actually, we don't. We could have just pushed out, couldn't we? So we can sacrifice an ice here to install an ice here. Install bacterial, advance, advance. We'll be on 2 credits. No, I think we slow roll this one. With if we score that to TPR, it's like really easy for us to win the game by fast advancing. So this seems really difficult for them. They largely need an inside job, I guess. But they're missing a breaker and they're missing credits. I forgot we have the Nisei token, which is super good. Oh, that's a really good, that's like the best recovery archives. Because now they're suddenly on 6 credits, 2 on Debbie. There's one more Carpe Diem, I think. So one more Dirty Laundry, one more Carpe, one more Baya, one more Bravado. No sure gambles yet. So there's going to be a lot of explosive economy coming up. The question is, do you have the decoder? And a lot of these decisions, like not resing your Tattoo Bolas, I think sometimes is not right into Kurapira. When you have a Botu and a Brown res, like I don't think we need it. Obviously money is restricted. 3 diversions we're also have to play around. But you can't like inside job and diversion, the run event. So you could do Boomerang diversion. That'll be annoying. Luckily, Lacosta does deal with that. We probably get the Enigma bounced here if we score this out. We are going to score this out. Okay, cool. So this is going to eat a Nisei token, which is totally fine. Because as long as we top deck a 4-2 and the Lacosta stays, we can fast advance the win out and use the Teia. Also now, if you go through the Brawn, we use the Nisei token, you don't get the Boomerang back because the run was not successful. They could Debbie this run. They should be Debbieing this run, I'm pretty sure. We also have a subroutine here. The subroutine here is interesting because we can install a card, which allows us to, in theory, like a Teia. We're going to install the Thimble Rig. If they don't click to that subroutine, which they could. They could click through all of this. It's not as good Ag Infusion, but it's still a relevant ability. And the run, see if they click or they just give us the install, which will take the Thimble Rig. Oh, they break all of it. Okay. So we're just going to Nisei token. And then we're just going to score this TPR out and then hopefully top deck a 4-2. They threw out a twinning. NGO front needs. Nice. Okay, do we have to score this out? They're on 2 credits. They have 2 on Debbie. They definitely should have made a Debbie run there, I'm pretty sure. Not that the money goes anywhere, but now if we ever top deck a 4-2, we can just install an ice, put the 4-2 on top of server 2, and the game is going to be good for us. What do we not want here? Saisantan is 5 credits to break for 3. Vovo, we'll just protect Vovo a bit. Obviously, top deck is really important here. We need to put the NGO front on the table. Losing the Lacosta would be really bad. Like we need the Lacosta to survive for the TPR to actually be a win condition. So let's see if they have a nice sure gamble. That's good. They probably need to run R&D here for single. They need to get as many accesses as they can. Back pro is also good because if they steal it, we're guaranteed just about to find the 4-2s we need. There's still what is it, 4 4-2s in the deck. So we just want to ice up R&D really well. Okay, Saisantan. So we'll put Enigma there. We'll do install NGO front advance, put an ice there just to keep them busy. They'll probably have the decoder now, right? We also want a thimble rig just so that we can move a Brawn onto R&D, I think. Boto's good too. We want Boto on the inside. Boto for now is pretty good. We res it for 4, which is enough. We only need 3 to score out. Then we can do NGO front advance and then move over. I think that's fine for now. The Enigma is obviously pretty good. We could put Thimble Rig here. I want to actually keep our hand padded. So we just need to top deck what's it called, a 4-2. This might actually make a run because this looks more like Charlotte. Now you might be wondering, like, why didn't you put it into the remote server? And the reason is if they run the remote server, they run the remote server and we lose Lacosta. We need Lacosta to win. Okay, this diversion is pretty okay with us. We have an NGO front on the table. What's this cost to break? 8 credits? Oh man, this diversion is just like a hold on diversion. It's not a great financial diversion. The Takobi will be good, mind you. Some awkward breakpoints on 6 strength with the Kurap here, but it's definitely something. In theory, we should consider resing the NGO front because if they went for an access, oh, but then we don't need the money, so never mind. All right, res, gain 5, res Boto. We need to lock the top of the deck, so they can't break Boto, so Boto is going to do some net damage, which is sick. That could have been lethal potentially. This should have been a Debbie run. They're forgetting to do Debbie runs. Lost an Ashen, that doesn't matter. Lost a Unity is really important, so we're going to keep the code gates in hand. Yeah, so now they lost their decoder and they lost a recursion card, so we just need to hold on. Got to advance something. Hedge fund, okay. So we'll put just the cheap decoder on R&D, code gate on R&D, and then click for 2 credits. Move Vovo? No. Again, we're just waiting to draw a 4-2. We have to have it in our hand at the end of our turn, otherwise Lacosta doesn't work. We just don't want to like make sure we forget we can push in the remote server, but I don't think we have to. We're actually pretty good locking out right now. Our HQ is the only server they can run, so we're going to get the Enigma on their next turn. We'll do Enigma, credit, and we'll just hold down. We're going to draw a bit. I don't expect Sneak or Beta, considering Takobi is like the, you know, flex slot. And there's only 5 MU in the rig. I don't think it decks on 2 Ashens. Oh, Chesva, cool. That makes running HQ a bit more palatable. Mandatory draw, got to advance this. Border control's cool. Kurap here is just at the point of being a problem, so we'll put this on HQ. Credit. So we can still res all our ice because of the magic of Vovo. Could get pinhold. Then we can only res 1 of our ice. But here we're just waiting to top deck a 4-2. Boarding control is also pretty sweet, mind you, with timely public release. But timely public release, even if we don't have ice in hand, we can install any of the ice from the archives. Because that's the way it works, which I always forget. Yeah, I think being a Debbie run there is good. Okay, so Bravado's still pretty good. They're not worried about face checks. We love to res our Thimble Rig here. It gives us some flexibility of moving stuff, but this will just end the run. And now it's resed, which is great. So now we can move up onto HQ. Okay, so we need to hold a 4-2 for a turn. Do we swip Thimble Rig? Actually, we do probably. Okay, so swapping Thimble Rig is bad in some ways. It plays around inside job. That's for sure. So we could put it on the innermost. That means they can break the Botu, but I don't think we mind. So I do think we actually end up swapping it. Because innermost, they can't break. Okay, so now we just have to hold off for a turn. So Vovo goes onto HQ. So we'll draw once and just do credit. This can't get diversioned because they'd have to do boomerang diversion. Could get diversioned. So I think we just do, yeah, no matter what we do, credit. We move Vovo onto HQ. And so the idea is that if we survive this turn, Nisei and the Lacosta survives. They need to trash the Lacosta. This is not always obvious. If they pinhole the Lacosta, like now the Lacosta doesn't look like it's doing anything. But in the context of timely public release, and I guess they don't know we're not on Seamless, you have to deal with the Lacosta still. Because if you deal with the Lacosta, we can't fast advance 4-2s. So as soon as they spend a click, 1 click left here. And now they can't run HQ because the Nisei goes in remote server. So now we do this. We install any ice. So we'll do from the table. We'll do a new remote server. And that puts the Nisei with the Teia ability in server 2. It was installed on their turn. So we can score it out. Nope. And we'll do triple advance. Wow, we locked them out a bit. Good game. The big barriers drawn early was good. We got, thanks to the game, we got a bit lucky on the pressure on centrals. Only 51 credits to the runner 78, which is like classic Teia. But we did get our 1 TPR, which is a nice way to close the game out. A bunch of decks do. I probably said this already in the early part of the video, but a bunch of decks are running 3 TPR. And I think if you do that, you want to be on 3 Seamless. I think those are also quite fine. Nisei tokens have been really, really good. And unfortunately, you need a bit more money. So off-world office, it's like hard to figure out what you want to do. And I think you want to run the bacterial programming because they just make you play less agendas and you can go from there. But hitting the Unity, getting that Bochu res, pretty good into Kurap here. Let's do one more. All right, playing against Hoshiko, 45 cards. Imagine it's good stuff, Hoshiko. Not the easiest matchup, but then again, that's an entire format. We have an early Bacterial in hand. Now, Hoshiko wants to run Centrals because you want to get the Hoshiko flip. So we're probably going to ice up maybe HQ. Oh, hey, cheers. I think this hand's good enough. Like border control remote server or even Enigma remote server is hard to deal with. A lot of these Hoshiko decks are like running 2 of every breaker, 1 turbine, and then like only Banhar is tricks. And border control, Enigma, Tattoo Bull are best opening ice. So if the Rashida sticks, we're fine. We're going to keep this. Bacterial programming is a bit of a risk, but if it gets stolen, it kind of fixes our early to mid game. Unless it draws really bad. Okay, things got worse. So what do we want? We want border control on the remote servers sooner than later. So we can do Rashida, border control. We don't have an Teia ability. Definitely hurts. Tattoo Bull and HQ is nice. We can do a Tattoo Bull, Enigma, Rashida. I kind of like Enigma on the remote server a bit better because they're likely to face check it. Tattoo Bull and HQ is also a bit better because sometimes they'll like raindrops. I guess they can still raindrops the remote server, but obviously drawing an agenda there is not what we wanted. Let's find a spin doctor or something. Now our opponent did mulligan. R&D you want to run here for sure with Hoshiko at a minimum. Price finding a cleaver, not a great start. Hitting a twinning and an Ashen Epilogue. So going for the twinning there, that means there's only 1 cleaver left in the whole list before they recycle. And they have 2 labor rights generally. Okay, never mind. This is a virus deck. Let's see what Audrey looks like without Nopkri. Kind of excited. Losing an early Vovo, trashing for Audrey. We'd love the early Vovo. Getting the flip. Draw 3, gain 3. Okay. So our remote server Enigma into Audrey, not fantastic. We have no ice that works favorably into AI, so we just have to make sure that he cannot trash things. So we can definitely get the Rashida in the remote server. We can do Spin Doctor, Rashida, get an ice in front of here, would be the border control, and then we can ice up R&D. We can't res everything, but of course we can't. We can also start here, and then we can use this to draw and siphon our agendas back into R&D, which is probably correct. So we ideally want the Rashida in server 1, and then we want an ice on R&D. So that's going to lead us to a hand of only agendas. We're going to be on 8 credits, which is not enough to res everything. So we might as well res the Spin Doctor and discard some card. Please stop drawing agendas. We have 9 points in hand. We've drawn 13 cards. Please, 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 please. Okay. So this goes into server 1, and then this goes onto R&D. This one's a bit more annoying because it is, you know, Audrey doesn't fully break it. Oh, we're not discarding cards. Fantastic. That's okay. Did the math right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So now a lot of times Hoshiko will weave in and out. We've iced up everything, so we just need to get our economy working. We have not got a Charlotte to stick on the table for a minute. Second price. Divide and Conquer, Strike Fund, Twinning Echelon. Early Echelon's really annoying because Saisenton, like, it's wild. It's like, it feels like Anarch sets up way faster than like Shaper SMC back in the day. Now, obviously it's like, it's random what they get, but like it's turn 2. They have all their breakers down. They're like 1 turbine away from the ice being messed up. Man, Anarchs these days. All right, at least Spin Doctor wasn't challenged so we can fix our hand. By fix our hand, I mean draw. There's only 4 agendas in R&D. I guess we're going to score the agendas. Border control into Enigma. Not the best. They don't know we don't have an Adrian, but they don't know that. So we can do install Nisei, install a Vovo, move Vovo over, advance Nisei, and then we have a click left over. We can put a 3rd ice here. If it's a Thimble Rig, that's pretty good. So we can actually get the Vovo in for free. So let's just try and just windmill agendas out. TPR is good, but we don't have a Lacoste on the table. So I think we're going to go either for off-world or for Nisei. I think we need the off-world early. Now, Nisei is obviously better early, but if we can't res our ice, we're in a really bad spot. So it's either or. If it's Nisei, I can't tell what it should be. This remote server you res really cheaply, right? Like Thimble Rig for free, border control for 2, Enigma for 1. It's pretty good. I'll take the money early and use the money to have more fear, but it could be right to do the other way. Discard down, so the Spin Doctor is going to get contested. I don't want the back pro in hand, I don't think. For what it's worth, the back pro in hand is like a nice way to fix your hand. We'll see if this looks like a Charlotte or not. We have to res all our ice. I think we can afford to res most of our ice. And Hoshiko minimum is going to run archives to get the flip, so the Spin Doctor will be contested. I think it's still better to keep the Thimble Rig in hand because we have a Tattoo Bull on the table, and we probably need the hedge fund. Echelon moshing buffered. It's like they're set up so fast. It's absurd. It's wild what Anarch can do. And like as soon as the turbine comes down, I don't think any ice is broken for more than 3 credits. Arguably Brawn and Thread both too. But it looks like we're just going to get the off-world, which like... All right, we're going to lose the Vovo. That's financially not good for us. I actually like the Vovo more than Rashida. We would love a Vovo here. Luckily, we went for the economy card. So they don't have to show us what they're going to access, right? That's the thing, is pressures both the Spin Doctor and the Vovo. I'm assuming it's nice that they got the 2-for-1 there. I'm assuming they would have gone for the Vovo anyways, but we... Be cool. think we have to make this play. Like, I think we just don't discard a card here and then we jam next turn. Like, obviously this is really strange, but like we have to be able to res everything here. And we don't want to discard a card because then we're holding mostly agendas. What is this draw? There's only 4 cards in R&D. At least we don't ever res R&D. Res for 5, break for 3 with echelon's fine. There's some respect here. Like if it's an Anansi, it's really annoying for them. It's expensive. It's only 6 though. We pay 8. Sure gamble. They might not want to get an access. They're definitely looking for a companion here. In terms of their acceleration, divide and conquer, we can't play around too much. Like we'll ice up archives when we ice up archives. Okay, cool. So we have to res everything here because we need to tax out. Audrey has 2 counters. Oh, we might have to use a border control here. I forgot Audrey has 2 counters because of the thing. Swap Thimblerig with another card. Oh yeah, wait. Yeah. I forgot. Never mind, we're fine. It's Thimblerig. Thimblerig sick. They might have to run away here because this taxes out all the Audrey. Thimblerig's actually good into Audrey. Don't ignore my previous tiltings. Do they not know what's going to happen here? Like they just use counters for no reason. There's no way to charge at instant speed. So they got the Thimblerig on the innermost. We can fix the next turn, but like that's a really fun play pattern. Also against like Banhart and stuff like that. I think once we moved it once, like I would have forgotten it. Obviously I would have, but from that point. Okay, that's a really good top deck because now we can install an agenda and install a spin doctor. So here we probably go for the Nisei token. So we'll do server 1 and this into a new remote. We'll draw here to start. We have an Adrian. We definitely want an Adrian next turn. We do advance Adrian. Here, both go on the outermost. We'll just jam. So actually, I think we want the TPR because that's how we win. So I'm going to shuffle back the bacterial we want in hand because we want to score 3 agendas, not 4. This looks like a Rashida. It's not advanced. Tattoo Bull on HQ is not going to hold. We can swap it for Thimblerig. They found their buzzsaw. All breakers are down. Turn 5. Okay. Not even a sweat. So now we're cooked because now the server is broken for 1, 2, 3 credits. It's rough out there sometimes. And I don't like this sort of breaker suite. Now our whole server is broken for 3 credits. Pinhole. I think they're checking the remote server. I don't think we care about the spin doctor. We have to take risks. This looks like Rashida. Yeah, it's a Nisei. So we can't score next turn. We have to hope for Adrian and hope that their money collapses. They also lost their Audrey. Looks like it was a stopgap. I don't think they're building their deck around it. But now, unless they're respecting big sentries, they can run this. And again, it only cost them 3 credits. They do not know that, though. If we get a both 2 out, that one at least is 3 to 4 credits. That's something. So we're going to do Adrian, install the both 2, and go from there. Swap Thimblerig. In theory, we should swap the Thimblerig with a Tattoo Bola. But I actually rather keep HQ now. We're not going to swap it. Stop it. Why are you like this, JNet? Okay, please, just anything else. So we'll do server 3, get the bow 2 for free, which is nice. We'll do advance. We have nothing else to do. We'll res Adrian, slide it to server 1. That's 2 pinholes out. Hoshiko did get the flip on 8 credits. So now they deal with border control and Adrian and unknown ice. Now both 2, mind you, is only 4 strength until we score at the Nisei, if we score at the Nisei. And from that point forward, I don't know what we're going to do. Dirty Laundry, Archives, got to use the Spin Doctor. Thanks for the reminder, Rahi. Cyber Feeder slaps. Points for Cyber Feeder. I think we go for the Fovo. Most of our ice is going to be rezzed. I like Fovo so much, though. It gives you a Teia triggers. If you're not getting a Teia triggers, why are we not playing Egg Infusion, he says, knowing the answers to that. Yeah, big berries are good, right? Like our deck has 2 bronze, 2 Botus. Like we can deal with Cleaver. We just can't deal with Turbine that well. Just going back, I think you want to make Essentials run here. Like you're not that scared of stuff. Now we're running. Okay, cool. So we have to survive this run. So this goes us down, brings us down to 8 credits. We need to res this. This at least is the most expensive ice currently on our board. We can barely discard a card to this thing. We're holding only agendas. Break for 4. Okay. Thimblerig tax for 1. We might as well swap the Thimblerig for the Enigma because it's broken for the same cost. We don't have to res it. And then either we decide to border control or we hold on for Adrian. I think we'll go for the border control. This is fine. This means that this doesn't seem to be worth resing, but they both broken for the same. And this saves us 3 credits, so why not? No. Okay. Border control. We are financially ruined. They break this for 1, and we end the run. We get a Nisei token. We're down on 2 credits. They hammer Centrals. They win. Now, if we trash this boarding control, Botu gets stronger. I think that's an okay trade. Like, I love to keep the boarding control as long as we can because, like, congratulations. And eventually Turbine will be here. Swap Thimble Rig. Yeah, at a minimum, this. Okay. Y'all feeling good? Okay. Click for credit seems pretty rough. We have a Tattoo Bola swap into a Thimble Rig at a minimum. This server now is a bit more expensive. If they steal the Nisei in this server rather than HQ, that's fine. I think it's a fine play. We can't do a double install here. I think we'll just click for a credit. Here, if they start tunneling R&D, like, we're totally happy with it. The Nisei in their remote server is much safer, actually. Yeah, it's too late to do that, but we definitely should have put the Nisei in their remote server. It's way safer than HQ. We've gone through only 19 cards. We shuffled back, I think, 4 cards. At least 2 of them were agendas. So I don't think they should know. Ooh, Anakam and Hosh, that's cool. A lot of good Anarch consoles. But why not? Divide and Conquer, Labor Rights, Ghost Tongue, Moshing. I don't know. Ghost Tongue is really interesting. Divide and Conquer, that's the second one. I'm not as worried about them doing that than just running HQ. Strike Fund? Yeah, okay. We may at least are going to hopefully lose a back pro. Yeah, putting the back pro in server 1's better than Nisei. Fire. Okay, we're on 1 credit. That's smart. If we go through that, we get more money. You want to draw an agenda? That's something. So we can put this in server 1. We can't really score the back pro. We can do install. Nah, we can't do much here. We just have to just hold on. No trigger. For what it's worth, you can put the Nisei on the table. It's just like we don't have seamlesses, so it doesn't really do anything. 2 Spin Doctors out, or sorry, 2 Pinholes out. They're down to 8 cards. Anarch stuff. At here now, they need a Labor Rights to get their Ashen back in, and just we have to do all this nonsense over and over again. They still have Steel Skin for draw. All their strike funds are out. They have a Sure Gamble coming up. They have a Dirty Laundry coming up. In terms of Labor Rights, they're probably on at least 2. If not, they could run out of steam. We haven't seen any companions yet or ways to charge the twinning, which I'm assuming they're all bottomed out. At least that's good for us. There's a Steel Skin to draw 4. So we need Rashida to draw into, honestly, not that much. Leech is annoying. Can't res that. There's no way we lose an agenda on R&D because of, this is called dramatic irony. When the audience knows something that some of the actors don't. Going back, getting the leech tokens saves a lot of credits. Each leech token is worth 2 credits for Botu. Unseen. No steal, no trash. Going to discard a card here. Ghost Tongue, makes sense. Swap Thimble Rig? Honestly, maybe. This thing's a bit more scary on the remote server. That might have been very incorrect, but we'll find out together, I guess. So we can install Nisei. We can probably just chain 2 Niseis either than the Bacterial. So we install Nisei, install Charlotte, double advance both of them. They break this, mind you, for not a lot of money. We made the Centrals really cheap. I think that's probably our plan. So we put 2 things on the table and say deal with both of them. The other options, we can get a Brawn on top of this. We have Noma Viruses, so like Leech is actually genuinely going to be annoying, but I think this is the plan that makes more sense for us. And now they don't know which one is the agenda. That's called Yomi. It's favorable. Saisantan is actually one of the more expensive ice for us to break, no matter like Leech or Turbine. Tactical is flexible. Okay. So they have 2 tasks to do. If we score this Nisei, we ideally change the second Nisei. We could also use a Lacosta there. They're not playing Fermenter, so their money is like not bulletproof. And if they need a Labor Rights Ashen, the problem is like generally once they like start transitioning to the Labor Rights economy stuff, they actually make a lot of money doing it. All right, we lost a click from them, which is good. That for us was functionally a click for 2 credits. It took us an advancement, but it took a click from them, and we did it clicklessly, so cool. But they can charge us remote server. They probably should. They still have to break Botu probably twice. If they charge it too late, we'll just Nisei token it. We can't really afford to res the Saisantan. Resing the Enigma also feels pretty bad. We probably shouldn't have took the Thimble Rig off of it. Dirty Laundry, okay. Again, all the agendas are in the hand. So, let's just do that again. We cost them a credit. So now they have to run it twice in a row. They can break Botu once for 2 credits. Mind you, we can't even fire the Botu subroutine that well because look at our hand. All right, so we're going to have to use our counter, which is pretty frustrating. They might not have the money to run this back though. So let's see how many leech counters they use, and then we'll force them to break Thimble Rig twice. This is a minimum is 2 credits, right? Then running back is very expensive. Okay, leech, mind you, fires counter to reduce the strength by 1. Break for 2. And we'll break this for 1. Swap. Continue approach, continue encounter, continue movement, swap, Nisei token. They can't really afford to run back because it costs 2, 4, 6, 7 to break this. If I don't think they're on overclock. So we just chain the Nisei tokens over 3 more turns. Mystic, okay, so 20 is going to charge up. It looks like we're jamming aggressively, so I don't know if they have to, like, Magnet's not worth anything. If they have to run HQ here. Move Adrian. In theory, we should move Adrian, but actually I think keeping Adrian around is going to be more important for us. So their game plan here is to see 2 on R&D, charge as many of their leech counters, because next turn we can do install advance, and then they're on the clock. We would love to get a Tattoo Bola would be fine, because Tattoo Bola with Nisei token means we can flip it to something more expensive, afford the more expensive thing. Now we're going for the labor rate. So here they need to make this as on tempo as possible for them. So they need to put back in like their strike funds and other stuff, because if they actually take the time here to Ashen, we'll have a scoring window. So let's see how good they can make it for them. Labor rights, mind you, fires, oh, trashing cards fires Anacom. That's really funny. So buffer drive strike fund Ashen. We're totally fine with that. This seems a bit greedy for the fact that we're on game point next turn by doing install advance. So they have to make this make sense. We know their hand is 1 sure gamble, 1 strike fund is now in the deck. They could have drawn one of those, but all these cards are a bit too slow. We're hoping just not to get there. Yes, they need leech tokens. This is a good run. Credit. Yeah, sick. Credits are going to matter because we're now going to jam their mode server. Swap Thimblerig? No, you're the best. Unless we swap Thimblerig with Tattoo Bola. Which if we swap Thimblerig with Tattoo Bola, then we can swap the Tattoo Bola. They have to run it twice. It'll be into a Brawn the second time. That means we'll be on 8 credits. We res the Brawn. We're on 2 credits now. Oh, that's such a good top deck. NGO front would be the next best thing. So we do the same play that we love making, which is we advance both of them and say, like, you have to run both of these. For what it's worth, if we had 2 4-2s, we could actually put 2 on the table and say, do what you will. But now they have 1 turn and they have to run this soon. And we still have Adrian as a fallback. So now they could have a strike fund in hand, which is going to be oh, there's the sure gamble. That's not a good start for us. We knew that. So now they have a strike fund in hand guaranteed. They have a buffer drive and an Ashen. Those 2 cards are really slow on tempo. Boto is just very expensive. They don't get enough leech counters. So they're checking Charlotte. Love it that we waste a click there. Gain 3. They have 2 clicks left. They have to run now twice on their mode server or run R&D HQ and win, which if they steal bacterial programming, it's really hard to win the game because it fires. And then like we can pad HQ or pad the top of R&D. So they have to run twice here. And I don't think they can afford it. I think we might have this. Again, Nisei token means we can always end the run. So we have to force them to make a very expensive run. Okay. They make this run once. I don't think they can make it twice. We can't afford to res the Enigma. We're 1 credit short. So we're just going to do that knowing Thimblerig trick again. So Botu, leech, pay 6. Okay. So we'll make them pay down to 1 credit. Actually, if they're on 1 credit, the question is, can we not play the Nisei and then just figure out what the text on Adrian is? I'm not sure. Maybe. So 1 credit here. So what's the text on Adrian? Each player reveals if the bids differ, the runner cannot access cards other than this upgrade. So if I spend 2, I need to figure out the text on Adrian. Imagine losing the game here. Well, not losing, but not winning. If the bids differ, the runner cannot access cards other than this upgrade. If the bids differ, so we've spent 2, they can access Adrian. If the bids differ, the runner cannot access cards other than the upgrade. So we can make them differ. We're not going to lose the credits. So we need 3 to score out. There's no way they pay 1. Yeah. So they can't even trash Adrian. And so now the Nisei just ends the run. Nailed it. All right. We went for the Nisei chain. I think that was better than the back material programming chain. Maybe we had a window. Maybe we did. It was getting dicey. Thimblerig, you're my best friend. We'll score the 3 of kind Niseis. Good game. Thanks for the game. Anakim Audrey is in the way. Yeah, I think if they just they had a chance to start contesting there, as long as they labor rights for more on tempo cards, it's still really difficult. Like if they brought back a Pinel threading, a sure gamble, I think obviously at that point, if they don't have a 3rd labor rights, it puts them out of recursion. But yeah, that's gonna be tricky for sure. They're also like on Ghost Tongue, which like I love the testing. From my testing, Ghost Tongue just doesn't work out as well as playing Mystic, which you can still play, or just prepaid. Like it's totally fine. All right. That's pretty fun, honestly. But we skin of our teeth as much as it was 8-0. Like once they stabilize and they deal with the Adrian, like we don't really have a game plan if they can just continue farming leeches. All right, we played a bunch of Teia. It took us a ban list before and after, and my conclusions are not great. It's hard to get a Teia to fire consistently, and the bad hands get really bad because if you're holding nonsense, you can't fire your ability, and then it feels like you snowball backwards. At the end of the day, like, you are still a deck that inherently really cares about ice and defensive upgrades. And while the defensive upgrades are pretty cool, as much as 2 pinholes becoming more common as we're seeing more criminal, the ice at some point has, you know, an expiration date because of the way the breakers work right now in Netrunner. Mind you, Boltu, huge fan. Brawn, obviously still pretty good, and barriers in general feel nice. Kurapir makes that a bit interesting. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not convinced unless you really go into like timely public release, seamless launch, which from my testing seems even more inconsistent, high highs, but very low lows. The Teia ability is kind of difficult to build around. I think it takes a couple cards. Obviously, losing Tributary was not great for Teia because we barely fire our ability during the runner's turn. I wish we did that more. And maybe seamless launch makes sense because you can't run through a Tattoo Bola last click, but the problem with the Teia is it's also first time a turn, so it's not like we can hold the Tattoo Bola until like the last moment. You could, it's difficult. Anyways, that's the Alphabet series. So this one took me a really long time for many, many reasons. I got really frustrated with other versions of it. And the change to the meta so far, we've been playing a lot more strange things, I think, in the last couple days, which has been good because I'm not sure it's going to have a great matchup against like tier 1 Netrunner stuff, which that's fine. You don't have to play tier 1 Netrunner. Thanks so much for watching. We'll get on to B next. I think it's built to last. Tune in. Cheers. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I was really stoked to get some Teia gameplay down, and like it took weeks and weeks, and my first iterations of these decks did not even have a positive win rate on JNet. So feeling a bit better of where we are now. I think tuning the ice suite for the meta was really important. And of course, just getting as many Teia triggers as possible with things like NGO front seems strange, but overall I've been happy with how it turns out. So excited to hear your feedback on how it works. Again, I think there's some combo decks out there we haven't seen exactly yet. Fast events is probably a thing too, but making a Teia's ability relevant on all board states is definitely a hard thing to do. And I'm excited to see as the card pool grows how cool a Teia is going to look in a year from now. On that note, I want to give a huge thank you. Again, so much time goes into this sort of stuff, recording, re-editing, going back to the drawing board, doing all this stuff again. I spent many afternoons playing Teia, and this would not at all be possible without the support from our patrons. And so I want to give a huge thank you to all the folks here that support the Métropole Grid. If you want to find out more, you can find a link in the description. Again, incredibly appreciative. And on that, we'll be back. B, I believe, is built to last. That's actually a relatively easy one. We will not play Hyper Grinder Glacier. I think we want to do something a bit faster and a bit looser, which is my favorite way to play built to last because you can go at quite some speed. So the Alphabet series, we got stuck there on A, but it'll be smooth sailing now, right? Thanks so much for watching.